Welcome to the Infidel, podcast of the damned, the weekly companion show of the Infidel news. Join us as we discuss this week's religious accounts from an atheist perspective. From Timbuktu to Toledo, from Kathmandu to Canada, from Bangalore to Bangladesh. We deplore, you deride. And here are your hosts, Dave and Nicole.
Hello and welcome to show number 30 of the Infidel podcast of the damned. I'm your host, atheist and author J. David Core, and with me is my co-host, Nicole Simard. Hello, Nicole.
Hello, David. And in French, we would say it's show number 30, bis, B-I-S. It means again.
Again.
Yes.
I thought encore meant again.
Yes, but bis is also used with the same meaning.
Well, also joining us today is YouTuber The Lizard Lass, formerly Special Kind of Nerd, formerly The Lizard Lass. So, welcome to the show, Lizard Lass.
Hello.
Today
I have the weirdest sense of deja vu.
You do?
Today is used to be Friday, June 5th, 2015, and we're going to be discussing the upcoming episodes of the Infidel News, which will run beginning Monday, June 8th, 2015. Today's newsreader is the Muckrooker. Show notes for all of our podcasts can be found at infidelpodcast.blogspot.com. And so today is yesterday, actually day before yesterday now.
No. You're all mixed up. There's still 15 minutes left before Friday's over.
You're right. There's still 15 minutes left. But yesterday, Thursday, was Nicole's birthday. So
yeah.
Nicole.
Yes, little old me.
Happy birthday.
You don't look a day older
Then 57.
than you did yesterday.
Yes. 27. I turned 27 according to the metric system.
Yeah, exactly.
You never heard that joke before?
No, I never. Actually, I think I wrote that joke before. But
Just to clarify, we already recorded this.
Yes, we did this once. We crashed. So this is our second go-around. So we're a little loopy. So it's going to be a fun show. Lizard Lass you started a YouTube channel just recently under the name The Lizard Lass. You had a channel before under the name The Lizard Lass, but you discontinued it for personal reasons, and now you've decided to bring it back.
Yes, I discontinued that channel approximately 3 hours before it took effect. I lost my words. English.
This is why I didn't drink scotch today.
Effect. Effect was what I was looking for, and somehow offense was coming out, and that was not what I meant. When Google decided to link our YouTube channels with our emails, and unfortunately I had created my channel under my personal email, which was my first name dot my last name. And at the time, I was working for a small family-run business, and although the people were very nice, they were also very, very religious, and I had to, I was already hiding the fact that I was not religious for fear of my job, and I was just a little bit nervous about trying to maintain that if my name was going to be linked to it. So I shut down that channel and started my Special Kind of Nerd channel. But I've never really gotten into that one, and I decided when I felt like starting to make stuff again that I would sort of launch new back under my original name and see where that takes me.
Right. So I assume you started another Gmail account.
Yes, I did. Actually, it was already there. I had thelizardlass@gmail.com, but at the time, I don't know if they've changed it since, you were not allowed to change the Gmail that was associated with your channel. So unfortunately, I had it but couldn't make it, and also at that time, before they made it so that there could be multiple channels that showed up under the same name, which apparently can happen now. I was blocked from reusing the lizard lass because even though I had discontinued it, they still considered the name to be reserved. So,
Yeah.
And for anybody who is trying to look up the lizard lass on YouTube while they're listening to this, make sure that you write the lizard lass without any spaces between the words, and you'll find her right there. And as I say this, I'm just pushing the button subscribe, and now I am subscribed.
yay! So I might have 28 now.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had quite a number though under your previous incarnation.
Yeah, I used to have a couple thousand when I closed the account, which is part of why it took me until the very last minute to make the decision that that was what I was doing. But there's actually a bit of a story. I actually was cross-identified by someone from YouTube on another site who was at the time living locally. And I mean, it was a nice person, so that was great. But it could have gone very wrong if the wrong people had cross-identified me. So I felt a little bit vindicated in my decision to close the original channel, but I'm really happy that I'm able to relaunch under it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so tell everybody what kind of material you'll be covering on your channel.
All right. Well, I've got a video that I've been working on about trigger warnings, and it is a response to 3 different users at this point, to Jason with a D and the True Puka, also known as Philip Rose, and also Noel Plum, with numbers after his name, but I can't think what they are.
Yeah. I
and I had it almost ready to go, and then Puka made a second video in which he addressed some of the things that I had been going to challenge him on, and so then reworking it has been taking me a bit more time. And I've got, I believe it's either a 10 or a 15-minute upload limit, so I have to make sure, since I have lots to say, that I keep it concise.
Yeah, they base that now on the number of subscribers you have, I think.
Oh, good. So.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, you've got 34 subs.
You've got 34. You've got 34.
That's gone up. That's gone up since the other day.
Yeah. Just while we were talking. Yeah. And it's not like anybody's hearing this yet. We're not live, you know. So you're going to be talking about in your first video. You'll be talking not your first video, but your first topic video.
Topical video.
Yes, you'll be doing trigger warnings, and then after that, you have another plan.
Yes, I've got a series that I want to do on false dichotomies. I find that they tend to be one of the most common fallacies that are out there, and one that I'm going to be doing is pro-choice and pro-life, because, you know, both of those terms imply an opposite, which would be respectively anti-choice and anti-life, and I don't think that in all circumstances those are fair. People often get accused of being pro-abortion, which is not necessarily accurate. And I just want to address that there is a lot more nuance to the discussion than the most prominent labels would imply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the false dichotomy is like a common one, a prevalent, like you say, a prevalent thing. Have you ever heard the term false trichotomy?
No.
Yeah, that's also an interesting thing to look up. C.S. Lewis, the Lord Lunatic and Liar.
Yes. Okay.
Yes,
So basically the same thing, but just adding a third option.
Adding a third option, yeah, and it's actually kind of a neat trick because it avoids people know false dichotomy, but they don't think in terms of trichotomy.
Third option.
Right. And anytime you can add another option, like Jesus is either a Lord lunatic or liar. What if he was legend? So that's a fourth option. Mm-hmm. So anytime you can add another option, it just proves a trichotomy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there. Your channel then is do you have any idea when you're going to start releasing content?
Yes. I'm hoping. I was planning on having the one video done today, but unfortunately, because I'm trying to change it up a bit and I need to do a little bit more looking into some things, it might be Sunday or it might be a little bit later in the week. I'll aim for Sunday because that's my next day off. And then I'm hoping that by the end of the month, I will have both my introduction to the false dichotomies series up and also the first video on pro-choice and pro-life.
Okay. And Nicole was saying earlier that if people wanted to locate you, to make sure that they typed it right. But just for anybody who doesn't know how to spell, we'll put it in the show notes and in the description. So you'll actually be able to find it on the videos or on the show notes page if you're accessing it that way. If you're accessing this through iTunes, you'll be on your own. So.
Hey, if you're listening to this through iTunes, go make a little trip on YouTube and try the channel Nicole SD, N as in Norman, ICOLSD, and there you'll find all the details you need.
Exactly.
See, there's always a solution to everything.
There's always a solution. There's always a way around it. That's right.
Yeah.
I want to take the opportunity to welcome you back to YouTube because I always enjoy your videos. I was a subscriber of yours back in the early days. I followed you to Special Kind of Nerd, where you never put out any content, and now I've already.
You didn't never put out content. I just didn't put out very much content.
Right? Yeah, you didn't put out much content. You didn't put out enough to satisfy me, but that's beside the point. But actually, that's just in general across the board. Most of the YouTubers from back then, except for Bionic Dance,
yeah,
nobody puts out the kind of content they used to put out.
No,
nobody does. But it's still like when was the last time you saw Phil?
He's been picking up again lately.
Oh, has he? Okay.
Yeah.
What channel's he using now? He had so many channels, I got confused.
I think right now he's Dick Dynasty 666.
Really? Okay.
He has a couple more.
But Phil Rose had a video out today.
Who did?
Phil Rose.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Phil Rose puts out a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, Pat Condell had a video out today.
Oh God.
Oh, that might have been something to look at.
Yeah. Giving atheists a bad name since 1995. But anyway,
he was doing it before then. We just didn't know yet.
We just didn't know it. Yeah. He put out at one point. He put out a couple of really good videos, like in a row. He put out like 3 or 4 in a row, and he got tons of subscribers from those.
Yeah, I was subscribed to him very briefly, and there were a couple, like something got shared by somebody or somebody recommended it, and I went and watched it, and I was like, this is fantastic, and I subscribed, and then it went downhill so quickly.
I know, and he's got this legion of troglodyte fans that are going to probably be on this video telling us what assholes we are because we love Pat Condell.
Let's put it this way. When I first came across Pat Condell, I thought that was a good video that I saw, so I subscribed. Then I watched a second and a third video, and I went, what kind of fucking mistake did I make? And I unsubbed immediately.
Yeah,
I still am sub to him just because every once in a while, I think I'm going to see one of his videos, and it's going to inspire me to make a ponage video that is going to like be epic. But all I find myself doing is just stammering at how ridiculous he is. So,
Yeah.
he's actually he's very well spoken and very literate and very, grandfatherly, and you just want to like him, but I don't know. But anyway, some of the other video makers that I used to really like that I wish they would make videos again. So while we're on the topic, if you're listening out there, Bob Smearfack,
Yes, Bob.
Phil Hellenes,
Oh yeah.
start making videos.
Yeah.
the living dinosaur. Some of these
He
guys.
still does from time to time.
Yeah.
He had one recently.
Did he? I must have missed it.
Yeah.
Yes, you did, bad boy.
Yeah, because YouTube doesn't update the way they used to, so
No.
you can miss people.
Yeah.
They put out something, you don't know it.
I
Anyway,
missed proportional response.
yeah, proportional response was good. Yes. And then sometimes another thing that's been happening a lot lately is they let you change your channel name now. And so a lot of people who I subscribe to have changed their name on
Yeah.
their channel, and I don't know who it is.
Right.
Because they use like images and stuff like that. And so I see a video come up and it'll say by so and so, and I'm like, I don't know who the hell that is, and I don't watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm probably missing videos by a lot of people who I would like to watch their videos, but they're not. Anyway, so anyway, that's enough about YouTube. That was a good tangent that we didn't talk about the last time.
But how much atheist stuff are you going to cover, Lizard Lass?
Some, I don't know if it'll be as atheist focused as I used to be, simply because a lot of the people that I used to respond to have moved away from those topics, and a lot of the religious people that I was used to responding to seem to have disappeared entirely. So it's rather than going back and rehashing things that I did years and years ago, I'm not sure what I'll do. There is some religious stuff that I'd like to revisit. One is Michael and Debbie Pearl, the Mudbrooker, who's the newsreader today, introduced me to them. They're frightening. They sort of run a cult of child abuse that is rather disturbing, and I'd like to
spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yeah, but
nonsense.
well beyond that,
Yeah, it does. It goes
like,
but even that just
I mean,
itself is bad enough.
infants, under a year old, as evil little manipulative Nazis, and that if a child won't stop crying, you should whip it with a switch until it stops at under a year old. It's beyond.
Yeah, they're pretty evil. And Mudbrooker did a really good job. He ended up getting contacted by some people about his material, and in a positive way. People wanted to, but that's for him to tell. But it's very interesting stuff. So I look forward to that. Seeing what you do on that. The atheism topic has kind of gotten, as far as everything's been said, 100 times by everybody, and so if there's something that somebody wants to find out about, like just the general information. But that's sort of why I have moved away from that to what I'm doing now with this channel, is because it gives you a chance to talk about how ridiculous religion is, because you've already talked about how it's why it's wrong, and then so now you get to talk about what the harm that it does and the good that it can do, but how the good that it can do isn't necessarily because of the religion.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Anyway, so speaking of the stories that we cover, let's see what the first one is this week.
Okay.
Oh, wait,
I'm going to surprise you.
aren't you going to do your trigger warning?
Oh, yes, my trigger warning. Yes. People, anybody who's squeamish and is watching this podcast on my YouTube channel, please, if you're squeamish and don't like blood, be careful of the next two stories, because there is blood and dead people.
On February 27, 2004, Bangladeshi atheist writer Humayun Azad was cruelly attacked in what turned out to be a failed assassination attempt. On January 14, 2013, religious critic and activist Asif Mohiuddin was fatally stabbed and had previously been arrested by the Bangladeshi government for writing offensive commentaries about Islam. The next month, Ahmed Rajib Haider, an atheist blogger, was attacked and his body was found mutilated beyond recognition. In March, atheist blogger Sunyur Rahman was attacked and hacked by a couple of men. Last November, AKM Safiul Islam, a secularist and teacher at Rajshahi University, was attacked on his way home and ultimately succumbed to the injuries received during his attack. So far this year, 3 atheists have been killed. On February 26th, Bangladeshi American writer and activist Avjit Roy was hacked to death. On March 30th, Bangladeshi blogger Washikur Rahman was attacked and killed. The latest attack occurred on May 12th when atheist blogger Anata Bijoy Das was hacked to death by 4 masked men. These stories represent a trend in the attack against Bangladeshi secular and atheist bloggers and activists who espouse criticism of religion, particularly Islam, in a country where approximately 90% of the citizens are Muslim and religious conservatism prevents a rising in stark reality. In an opinion piece published in the New York Times, writer and anthropologist Tamima Anam described persons involved in these attacks as victims of a poisonous political climate in which secularists and Islamists, observant Muslims and atheists, Jamaat-e-Islami and the Awami League are pitted against one another. It should be noted that these attacks are symbolically, historically, and politically antithetical to a country that fought for independence from Pakistan in 1971, in part because of the targeted attacks and killing of minorities and public intellectuals. Freelance journalist Joseph Alchin summarized the situation perfectly in Politico magazine, where he stated that this narrowing of acceptable beliefs is as costly and chilling to the diverse, rich variety of Islamic traditions as the non-believer. If Bangladesh continues to follow its current path, all notions of secular rights could soon be completely drowned out by the resurgent, all-pervasive conservative Islam.
Okay, so this is all going on in Bangladesh, which has no laws. It's not one of those countries like Saudi Arabia where atheism is illegal. It's legal to be an atheist in Bangladesh. It's legal to have opinions critical of Islam in Bangladesh. It's just not safe to have opinions critical of Islam in Bangladesh, because the majority runs rampant and there's not much being done about it. So kudos to anybody in Bangladesh who has the courage, to stand up for free thought. But you're a better man than I am, because I don't know that
I could not do that. I already said that I shut down my channel because I was afraid that my workplace would find my atheist stuff and find it offensive enough to come up with other excuses for getting rid of me. So,
yeah, I used to work. I worked for I was a photographer for several years, and one of the companies that I worked for was a church directory company that was owned by a Catholic family, and they didn't know that I was atheist. I never told them that I was atheist. I had no reason to tell them I was atheist. But we would go to meetings, and they would open the meetings with atheists or with prayers, and I would just tell them that I was uncomfortable praying in public, which is true. but I did. Yeah. Yeah, it's actually legitimate from a Christian point of view, but try to explain that to them. And but then after my daughter was born, I decided I was going to have a vasectomy. So I took a couple days off to have a vasectomy, and my boss called me and tried to talk me out of it.
Well,
Wow.
Yeah. So I can imagine what he would have done if I'd have told him I was an atheist.
oh boy. Well, I have a lot of respect for those people who are still, blogging in spite of all the dangers. You look at, for example, you've heard of Taslima Nasrin. She was a doctor. She had to run away from her country. Back in '94, she was hiding in, well, maybe not so much hiding, but living in India to protect herself from the extremists who were after her. And now, she has received more death threats, and she's trying to get out of India because it's no longer safe for her. So I have a lot of respect for people like them who are trying to remain true to their beliefs and are fighting the good fight.
Yeah, and like we were talking about before on the when we recorded the show earlier, it's worse for the apostates than it is for the infidel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and
They're more dangerous because they have known what is allegedly true and they turn their backs on it, and that's so much more disruptive to the religious collective than outsiders who are potential converts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's still dangerous though for people who are associating with them, with these bloggers. I remember Salman Rushdie. Everybody knows Salman Rushdie, right?
Yeah.
He wrote the Satanic Verses, and the Ayatollah Khomeini issued a fatwa, and he had to go into hiding for several years. And he has said, I think, since he's no longer in hiding. He's not afraid anymore. I don't think. I think it kind of died down, so he feels he's safe. But I think he has said that part of the reason he went into hiding was for the safety of, like he didn't want to do public appearances because of the risk it presented to other people at the public appearances.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and these killings are so brutal as well. I commented on this, I think, the first time, that it's not just a quick execution style shot to the head kind of thing. It is horrible, violent attacks that, there must be so much suffering involved.
Mm-hmm.
And, as was stated, a couple of the people were attempted murders, not successful. And, right. The injuries and the long-term recovery, and then the constant fear that these people will come back. Mm-hmm. It's just something I can't even fathom.
Right. And honestly, that part of it is probably because they're trying to send a message. If we brutally kill this person and you see their blood, maybe you'll shut up, and fall in line. So yeah, and that's anytime anybody has an opinion and people try to use brutality or threats of violence or threats of repercussions, that person has lost the argument already. Yeah. As far as, and it actually has a long-term detrimental effect on their position. So, like you could have, let's say, like a perfectly moderate Muslim who's devout and could come to these people and say, what you're saying is a little bit. It's I'll draw the analogy with America and the Draw Muhammad cartoons, right?
Yeah.
The Pamela Geller had her stupid thing in Texas, and a couple of Muslims showed up with guns and tried to shut it down. And it would have been a one-time thing that nobody gave a shit about. But because they showed up with their guns and tried to shut it down, what ended up happening was, in Arizona, they had another one.
Yeah. It made it a lot bigger.
and it got bigger, and they showed up with guns. So yeah, you don't make your point when you do this. You don't win the argument when you do this. You could win hearts. And at the Arizona thing, there were a lot of Muslims there because they actually did it outside of a mosque, and we're actually doing a story on this. Nicole found the information on this. The Muslims at the mosque invited the protesters inside for a prayer meeting, and one of the protesters went in and came out saying he was really sorry he showed up for this thing. He would never do this again because he met these people, and they were civil. And so,
and he said he wouldn't wear an offensive T-shirt like the one he happened to be wearing that day.
Yeah, they were giving out shirts that said "fuck Islam." So he and he's at a prayer meeting in a mosque wearing this shirt.
Oh, dear.
But so anyway, and it doesn't necessarily mean, they didn't convert him to Islam, but they did give him less reason to be vitriolic.
Well,
so
it's hatred of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And it's believing, lies and exaggerations, and believing, assuming that everyone in a group is like a couple of outspoken radical individuals that they don't, personally associate themselves with in any way. And when it's a lot harder to have that kind of hatred and dehumanization when you actually meet the humans. And when you show up to be a jerk and they say, do you want to come in and see what we're doing? Because it's not that scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you imagine if every non-atheist in America, their only experience with atheism was Pat Condell?
Oh.
I can think of a few more that I would, not quite of the same ilk, but...
Yeah. Cult of Dusty.
Oh, yeah, that was definitely... I didn't want to start naming names.
I'll name names.
Hey, you're on my channel.
I'll take this mother down. But yeah. Anyway, so let's go ahead and do the next story. The next story is also Bangladesh, and it's also kind of bloody in the graphics. So anyway, let's take a look at it.
The Islamist group Ansarullah Bangala Team, or ABT, has been banned in Bangladesh after its members became suspects in the recent killings of 3 atheist bloggers, Dr. Avjit Roy, Washikur Rahman, and Ananta Bijoy Das, as well as other attacks going back several years. The group claims to have a hit list against other atheist bloggers, but is only one of 6 such outlaw collectives that's said to be attempting to suppress the freedom of expression in a country where more than 90% of the population is Muslim. Other bloggers, both in Bangladesh and around the world, have expressed outrage that there have been no charges filed in the murders and other brutal attacks. In the face of this reality, the declaration of outlaw status seems largely symbolic, causing bloggers as far away as Canada to be concerned about their own safety.
Yeah, so they outlawed the group because they are probably afraid to arrest the people that they know are involved. And outlawing the group just means that they change their name. That's all it means. They just disband. They disband and then they regroup.
Yeah, and all bloggers, who are brave enough to stick to their gun and to keep doing what they're doing, well, they're in danger wherever they happen to live now, because nobody is dumb enough to think that the bad guys are only in one place and they don't have any contacts outside.
Yeah, they have long reach. Yeah, because Geert, what was his name? The cartoonist that was killed.
Oh,
Wilders.
Yes.
Geert Wilders. Yeah, he wasn't in an Islamic country.
No.
So they can get you. They can find you. If they want to. And you hope that the government is able to whatever country you're in, that they're able to intercept it, but they can't intercept everything. No government can intercept everything. If they could, we wouldn't have had the Boston bombing. Things go under the radar. They just get through.
Well, and it's just it doesn't do anything. I mean, years ago, the United States made the KKK into an illegal terrorist organization, and now they've come out of that status and are a legal group, and it doesn't get rid of the ideas. And that's the problem. And driving the ideas underground is almost worse.
Yeah.
Like they could have used the information that they had by this being a group in order to investigate people more closely, arrest the people who it was appropriate to arrest, who were actually planning violence. And instead, they've told them to disband, given them warning that they're potentially being watched, so they'll be more secretive, more stealth about it. And it's also harder to speak out against people who are being covert, because they're not, when they're saying things publicly, it's a lot easier to speak against it and counter their arguments.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, if something's being done in a lot of the more radical groups in any organization, like for example the Scientologists, once they get their people, they tell them not to look at the internet, not to watch television, because they don't want them getting the other message. They want them only getting the one message, and so driving any group underground, like making it so that. The criticism of them is going to, especially if the criticism is going to cause them, to be arrested. Like if their voice is going to cause them to be arrested, of course they're going to just go underground. They're going to hide, and they're going to shut their people off from the outside, and you're going to end up with like these. In some countries in the Middle East, they have whole communities where the school is run by terrorist organizations, and they teach one idea, which is really no different than homeschooling in the United States. But it's the same thing. But you don't. I didn't know that the sun was the center of the solar system. My mom didn't teach me that. So whatever they want you to learn, that's what you learn.
Yep.
That was kind of a ramble, wasn't it? But anyhow, yeah. So Bangladesh, though, is a very interesting. On the map, where is Bangladesh? It's not in Africa, is it?
I believe it's northeast of India. Let me check
Northeast, so it's
on
in
the
Asia.
map. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Because you don't really think of Islamic countries in Asia very much. That you think of Buddhism in Asia or Hinduism in Asia. You don't think of.
Yeah.
Is Pakistan considered? Pakistan is not considered part of Asia.
Is it not? I would have thought it was, because it used to be part of
India. Part of India, yeah. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what continent it would be considered part of. So, because Russia straddles two continents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was right. It's northeast of India.
Okay. And Myanmar's are in that area somewhere too, right?
Actually, it's just east.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So there's a lot of Muslims in the middle in India or in Asia rather. I'll get it out. There's a lot of Muslims in Asia, and we just don't think of that. We think of the Middle East when we think of Muslims. Yeah. There's a lot in Africa. There's a lot in Asia, and there's a lot in Flint, Michigan. But actually, it's Dearborn. I think it's Dearborn, Michigan, where they're. But anyway, let's go ahead and get away from Bangladesh and move over to Europe and see what's going on in Ireland.
Ireland, nice stuff over there.
In a posting for the UK's National Secular Society's blog, the group's executive director, Keith Porteous Wood, examined the analysis of Ireland's recent referendum legalizing gay marriage to determine the breakdown of Catholic support versus Protestant. According to Wood's analysis, the Irish counties which showed the most support for marriage equality were also some of the most Catholic. The least supportive regions were in the north, closest to the border with Northern Ireland. The largest supporting regions were areas around Dublin. However, the biggest surprise came from Galway, which is considered to be very rural and is historically dominantly Catholic, yet still supported the referendum 60-40. Overall, the nation approved the ballot issue by a 2-to-1 margin, with much of the support coming from younger voters, and Wood sees this as an indicator of the dramatic loss of sway the Catholic Church has had in Ireland in recent years. Wood notes that, quote, in 1990, the Republic of Ireland had the highest proportion of weekly church attendance in Europe. At over 80%, it was in a class of its own. The next European contender was only 41%. He also notes that as recently as 1995, the nation professed an 87% allegiance to the Catholic Church, and the population overall was 98% Christian. This, however, was before the revelation of the Church's child sex scandal, which the Church continues to downplay to this day.
So yeah, that story is one that I found, and the link to the information for that story will be in the description and in the show notes. So if you want to look a little bit deeper into those numbers and how Ireland broke down as far as the vote, it's really fascinating. What's interesting about it is that the more rural you became, in most cases, the less support there was, which is to be expected. But mostly, the closer you got to the north, to the Protestant area, the less support there was. So it was mostly Catholics and people in the major metropolitan areas that drove this vote. But it was still a lot of people who normally you would think wouldn't support it because of their traditional attachment to the Catholic Church. But the Catholic Church has lost so much sway in Ireland that you can almost track that this is where Catholic sway has left, and this is where support of gay marriage has grown. There's almost a direct correlation between the two. So that was really interesting, and especially interesting to me because I have always thought that the only reason most people oppose gay marriage is because of their religious ideas. And if the less attached you are to your religious ideas, the more you're able to see that there's no legitimate reason to oppose gay marriage. The whole idea, this whole thing with Adam and Eve and Adam and Steve, and
I never heard that one before.
Ever heard that? And marriage is between a man and a woman, and God ordained marriage to be between a man and a woman, blah, blah, blah. There's not even any historical biblical justification for that.
Nope.
So,
Not at all.
not at all. It's just your church telling you that. But Jesus doesn't say a damn thing about it. The few things that are said about it in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, it's also couched in other ideas. Homosexuality itself, not gay marriage, but just homosexuality itself. It's pocketed in with other ideas that they just ignore. Like right next to man shall not lay with woman is a woman shall leave the tent when she's on her period. Yeah. How many women today leave the tent when she's on her period? They just ignore that. There's that hypocrisy. Plus, the idea that there's never been such a thing as gay marriage is also not true, because there are records in the Vatican of gay marriages performed by popes.
There are?
Yes. I'll find the evidence of that, and I'll post it in the doodly-doo. But it's ridiculous. The every argument that they make. Plus, the Old Testament, marriage was between a man and his wives, or it was between a man and his
plural wives and his many concubines.
Yeah, yes, yes. Or it was something where if a like there's one thing where if a man dies, his brother is responsible for marrying the widow. If he has a
Yeah.
brother, the brother has to marry the widow. So it has nothing to do with marriage in that sense has nothing to do with any of the things that we associate marriage to be with. It has to do with forming a family bond and protecting the family. So there's no reason why that can't be two men or two women.
Actually, the part that you were talking about, the brother marrying the widow, in my family, it something very similar happened, but it was the other way around. It was the sister who married the widow, the widower. So my mother's mother was engaged to somebody else, but her brother-in-law's wife died, her sister, so she was forced to go and marry her brother-in-law.
Yeah, my ex-wife's uncle died, and the this is kind of complicated. This is like I'm my own granddad kind of a story. But, my ex-wife's uncle was married to this woman, and he died, and his brother lost his wife like a month later, and so the two surviving members of the family married. So, but there's no biblical. It wasn't because the Bible said so.
No,
because they wanted.
well, in the case of
Yeah.
in the case of my grandmother, it was because the priest said so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it was biblical then in your case.
Well, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to call the priest biblical.
Well, he was actually going by the Bible. That's what the Bible says to do.
Yep.
He was, yeah, and there was and then when your mother and another woman were fighting over who should raise you, he told the priest said, cut him in half.
No, his logic was that it was best if the children from the first marriage were brought up by their aunt.
Oh, yeah, that's just gross.
Yes. But then you're talking about a priest, 3 years ago.
Who's never been married himself.
Yeah.
No idea what raising a family was about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but his word, mattered. So.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so but anyway, the picture that you put up on that was one that you found. Tell us about that picture.
Yes. 1 second.
In a posting for the UK's National Secular Society's blog,
Okay, I had to bring back the video because I couldn't remember. It said, now I forgot again.
Rights. Human rights is my pride.
Exactly. It's too late, and now I'm forgetting everything. Yes. And that was from a sign that was held at one of the pride parades over in Ireland, and I thought that was a great thought. And actually, it should be a thought for everybody. It should be our motto.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so the caption on that since that's a story I wrote, the caption on that was Patrick FitzHugh and Hugh Fitzpatrick is the punchline to an old joke, which I thought was very appropriate in that particular case. I'll every once in a while, almost every time I do a story, I try to come up with something goofy to put in the headlines. Sometimes I dance on the edge of propriety with that one. I think I can get away with. That one was kind of funny. So
I found the results of that vote very heartening, and then, of course, very disheartening the Irish bishop who said something about it being a huge step backwards for humanity, which I thought showed his lack of connection to reality. And even to the opinions of the current Pope. And if the Pope is infallible, then
we've had this discussion before.
You should be listening to that a bit more.
Yeah, the Pope is not infallible on issues like that. The Pope is only infallible on issues of faith, as far as the Catholic Church doctrine. So he's not. The bishops can.
Does that not address faith, though? Does that not, No,
not really, not in that sense.
Okay.
There have only been a few infallible doctrines that popes have actually. Most things that popes say aren't considered infallible. But the way the Catholic Church works, though, is that usually the Pope is somebody who's in line with the bishops. So, like Benedict was mostly in line with the bishops. So when the bishops hear the Pope say something, they treat it as if it's doctrine, so that the people will fall in line with it, because the people look at the Pope as though he's infallible. This idea that the Pope is infallible is ingrained in most people's heads. But as far as church doctrine, that's not the case. So if the Pope says something that the bishops don't like, they'll actually call him out on it, because he's just the Bishop of Rome, as far as they're concerned. Yeah. But the Catholic Church, the whole deal with what happened in Ireland, though. That's what's that organization? It's SNAP. Is that what the organization is called? About that? Is that what they're called? That
let me check.
All the child rape accusations to the fore. They have had so much impact on that country, and the stories that were coming out. The just like this whole this whole quiverful movement in the United States. Where they're actually, keeping their own. The Duggars recently came out and said that the quiver. There's a lot of this stuff, this child molestation stuff, going on in the quiverful movement. They just found out, but they did it. They said it almost. They said it all ironically. They said it apologetically in an interview with Megyn Kelly. They were like, well, this happens a lot. It happens a lot because they make sex shameful. Because they worry about scandal rather than worrying about victims. Yeah. And it's exactly the same thing that happened with the Catholic Church, and it's happened in other churches too. As I mentioned in the last issue, we have a story coming out in a couple of weeks about the Methodist Church in Britain. They did their own study, and they found thousands of cases of ministers and the laity being involved in sexual molestation cases. In their own church, that were all kept quiet because of people being worried about scandal. So that's what happens. And when it finally comes out and people start to realize that their church was involved in this long thing, if the church doesn't react responsibly for it, people turn the people turn against it. And so that's going to happen with this quiverful movement, but it's not going to happen with the Methodists, because the Methodists are being responsible about it.
Yeah. I'm reminded of something that you said last week when Josh Duggar came up in last week's show, about you're taking issue with people labeling him as a child molester due to the fact that he was, in legal terms, a child himself at the time. Mm-hmm. And I've heard you made the same argument on Facebook as well, and people have certainly argued against you. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you to an extent, and I think too that it's hard. We're looking at it as people who have been raised properly and rationally, mm-hmm. and I question the extent to which the average 15-year-old boy, yes, would know that he was doing something wrong, would know how wrong it was, would understand consequences and all that. Mm-hmm. But someone who was homeschooled, mm-hmm. whose sex education was abstinence only,
right?
I find it harder to think that he would have had the same level of emotional maturity, at least as regards sex, as we expect a 15-year-old to have.
Right.
And I think in instances where, it's fine to say a 15-year-old understands right from wrong, and they do, but when it's just as wrong to steal a cookie as it is to masturbate, as it is to commit murder, because
Right.
all sins are equal, then,
Yeah.
go the kid who hasn't stolen the cookie.
Right. And on that, to that point, Josh Duggar, this actually came out this week in that interview with Megyn Kelly. Josh Duggar, when he began touching his sisters, it was over the clothes. And he went to his parents and told them, I think I did a bad thing. So so it's almost as if he did it at first, knowing that it was wrong, but not understanding what the consequences would be. So he went to them and said, I did this thing, I think it was wrong. And they kind of went, oh, well, we don't talk about that kind of thing. And so then it got worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really, I mean, it's the parents' fault in every sense of the word in this case.
Exactly.
It was the parents' fault.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but again, he did then eventually, once it got worse, they took action and they took him out of the situation. So he then learned that it was wrong, but he learned it like in a second-hand way that it was wrong.
Well, and almost more that it was worse that he had talked about it than that he had done it.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you've seen their awful, weird manual from the homeschool association that they belong to that addresses it, and like how much victim blaming it is, and if it's not the victim's fault, then it makes the victim extra special to God, and it's just all of these things that are so like, well, you're not giving any disincentive for doing this.
Yeah. It's just a horrible.
It's really messed up.
It's just so creepy. It was always creepy. The whole Quiverful thing, and I get so pissed off at channels like TLC putting, these assholes on TV, giving them a forum,
And making them look like they are great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the same time, yes, some people are watching it as a train wreck and whatever, but there are still the people who decide to emulate it, and it's the same problem that you get with these shows about 15 and pregnant, and so then you have to have 14 and pregnant because, you want to one-up them.
Yeah.
And the idea of these kids who want to be famous, want to get on TV, and if I get pregnant at a really young age, that's a way to do that.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah, it always bites them. It always bites them in the ass too when they do these shows. It bites the network in the ass. There was a show that they did a couple years ago about drunken hillbillies in West Virginia, and one of the kids, in order to basically keep up his reputation, put his life at risk drinking beer and riding a four-wheeler, and he died. So they had to cancel the show. But it's still it ultimately falls back on the show. And then there's also so many shows now about psychics and ghost hunters and Bigfoot hunters that normalize that, and make that okay. When I was a kid, if there was a psychic on TV, James Randi was right there proving him to be fake.
Yeah.
Now Dr. Oz has a psychic on at least once a season.
And you've brought me back to people whose videos I miss. Voodoo 6 needs to...
Oh, yes. Yes.
He was
great. He was really great.
Okay, anyway.
He was doing a series that was going after these ghost hunter and whatever type shows. And he was awesome.
Yeah, he was showing how they were faking things and stuff like that.
Yes, he was duplicating the fakery that they were doing.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah. There's a great episode of South Park, which I mention South Park a lot, but there was an episode of South Park where about John Edwards, and Kyle learns, Stan learns how to do the same cold reading, and so he's standing outside the audience as they're in line to go in to see John Edwards, and he's like showing them how the cold reading works, and he's explaining to them that it's a cold reading, and they start thinking he has psychic powers.
Yeah, of course. Of course. That's
Yep.
what believers do, right?
That's what they do. Yeah. Even as you're explaining to them that it's, that's like Penn and Teller can do a magic trick where they show you how the magic trick worked, and people still, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Magic.
There's a show in America called America's Got Talent, and every fucking season they have magicians on, and these magicians are doing the same fucking lame tricks that you can see YouTube videos about how they did it.
Yeah.
and Mel B
But
and Howie
it's-
Mandel are sitting there amazed.
It's when you know how it's done, and so you're watching for the thing that they should be doing, and they can still trick you. And it's when it's done well enough that it suspends your disbelief.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's what makes it good to me. That's what makes a good magician.
Yeah. Well, there's a great trick.
They,
There's a great trick that everybody has probably seen you do with tissues, where you put one person in a chair and then everybody gathers around and watches you do the trick to this person, and you hide the tissue in your hand, but you don't. You palm it, and then you throw it over their head, and everybody else sees the tissue fly away except for them. And when you open your hand and it isn't there, they're stunned. That's a good trick. Because everybody knows it's a trick, and when he stands up, he's going to see the tissue laying there, and he's going to know what the trick was. That's how a trick. That's what magic should be. It should be showing you how the trick is done, not just fooling you with the trick and then saying, "Well, it was magic. I can't reveal my secrets." Fuck your secrets. I don't want to.
exactly.
Yeah, but at least most magicians are not as bad as Teresa Caputo and Joy Margulis or whatever her name is, and John Edwards, preying on people's gullibility and making them think that, and then passing it off when they get caught as being, well, I gave them closure. No, you didn't. You lied to them. Is all you did.
The mall that I used to work at would frequently have there's a psychic circle that goes around to the various malls and rents space. And they do like tarot readings and palm readings and aura photography. And it's so ridiculous. And it would come through like 3 or 4 times a year. And it was because I was working there, I couldn't, like, you guys are full of crap. You shouldn't be allowed to be here.
I know.
So much. I really wanted to be like, advising people not to go.
Yeah.
Luckily, they had very few clients.
Mm-hmm.
But
and one thing that annoys me too is that when you are a skeptic about things like that, people who aren't skeptics will say, well, if it wasn't real, how did they do it? I don't.
But my other favorite is that it's the fact that we're skeptical that's blocking the psychic.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I can't do this. You're resisting. Yeah. Okay, it's my fault. Yeah. That's what actually. There's that video from the 1970s with James Randi where he proved that one guy was just blowing on telephone book pages.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah.
Oh yes.
That's what he said. Yeah, that's what he says. He says in that video. He says you're blocking the energy. It's like, okay, whatever. Whatever, dude.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway,
speaking of gullible people.
yes, here's a great guy. I call him Lord Fatso. His real name is Paul Taylor. He works, or he used to work with Eric Covent, and I guess now he's back in England because we haven't seen him on with Eric for quite a while. And this week, or actually yesterday, we're now Saturday, Eric rehashed an old segment where Paul amazed us with his intelligence. He dazzled us. Watch out.
And what this creation myth says is that in the beginning there was nothing, and that nothing suddenly exploded. Now think about this. You see, is this actually a scientific statement? Does it sound scientific? Does it sound rational? The astronomer Heather Cooper, writing in a children's book called The Big Bang, said this: "It was a nothing so profound it defies human comprehension." Now, is that a statement of scientific opinion?
Did that sound scientific enough? It was in a children's book.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Christians never write children's books that dumb down religion. So, well, how dare you dumb down science for children to help them understand it?
Yes.
Yes. My brother...
Write books for adults that dumb down religion.
Yeah, that's true. Religious tracts dumb down religion more than any science book for children ever has. But I have a brother who worked for the agriculture department for a while, and his job was to go to scientists and have them explain to him what they were working on until he understood it well enough to write it for people with a 6th grade education to understand. That was his job. So yeah, so you have to do that with science in order for people to understand the concepts, because you can't explain to the average person the molecular theory,
minute workings of quantum physics.
Yeah, and expect them to understand what you're talking about. You know, if you did that, you'd come across like Sheldon Cooper on Big Bang Theory, and everybody would be looking at you like, "What are you talking about?" And then anyway, but yeah, and it's a difficult thing to do, to figure out the line where you can explain something. And this is a problem with science in general, is that popular magazines like Time Magazine or Newsweek Magazine or any of these magazines, whenever they get a story about a scientific discovery, especially the big ones, and then they try to write it for people, the memes tend to be what the writer said and not what the scientist said. You know what I mean? That people so like ideas like the age of the Earth, for example, they'll explain that in terms of like on Cosmos, when they have that big calendar and they break down the time period with the calendar. That's how people learn it. You know, they learn it that if the whole of the universe was the same as a year, then human existence would only be a few seconds.
Yeah,
you know, that's how they learn it, and so that's what gets stuck in their head, and that's how they try to pass it on, and then it becomes a game of telephone, because now they're trying to explain that concept that was explained to them by Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah,
but it's Joe the plumber explaining it, so it gets all confused. And anyway,
that could be a reality show.
What?
Plumber trying to translate Neil deGrasse Tyson.
That would be good. That would be a good show.
I think not really, because I still think that it's stupid to take a children's book and try to expect it to be making profound scientific statements.
Mm-hmm.
But that part of the problem does come from the use of the word nothing, because nothing by definition can't exist.
Right.
And, you know, we're using that to describe the fact that it was not reality as we now know it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if there's no time and there's no space, then we construe that as there being nothing, because time and space are all that we have to go by. But that doesn't mean that there can't be another state of being that is just beyond our comprehension. you know, profoundly beyond our comprehension, which is what I think she was trying to express.
Right.
But it is that nothing word that leads to stuff. And the other thing that I find so funny is that it's the Christian creation myth that says that God created everything out of nothing.
Right.
Ex nihilo.
So it's a complete loss of opportunity on this guy's part to not be like, see, she says that there was nothing, and that's exactly what the Bible says, and therefore the Bible is right. Instead, he's trying to discredit her and saying, well, that doesn't sound scientific, and it's like, well, neither does the Bible. So
Yeah.
all he's done is maybe made them equal.
Right. But in a sense, like what you're saying is they're using the word nothing as a metaphor for an idea that we can't put into words.
Yeah.
But it's also it is in a sense a distracting word, because the actual theory is not that there was nothing. The actual theory is we don't know what there was.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So
There wasn't what we have now,
Right.
but we don't know what was there instead, and that's different from nothing.
right. And people also confuse the concept of going backward in time too, because according to the theory, space-time is a thing. So it's 4 dimensions of 3 of space and 1 of time, and time is actually part of space. And so time actually, as we understand it, as we experience it, began at the Big Bang. So when we talk about going back, what was before, the word before is meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no before, because that's where time began, as we experience it. So it doesn't. So therefore, the idea of eternal loses meaning. If there's no before, then the idea of eternal means nothing. So was there eternally nothing is a meaningless, wholly, entirely meaningless concept.
Yep. And actually, you kind of remind me here a bit of a story I read this week. It's a bit beside our point, but it's the idea of time travel, where a physicist was explaining that time travel is very possible, at least heading into the future. Into the past, it's a different thing. Nobody knows yet. But going into the future, yes, time travel is very possible, because if you go with Einstein's theory of general relativity, if you travel fast enough in space, time will move slower for you than for us on Earth. When you come back, you will have moved forward in time. You will be younger than us, than the people who are on Earth.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm in the
so
past right now, because you guys keep saying it's Saturday, and for me it's Friday.
Still Friday.
For
Yeah,
just
still
over
Friday.
2 hours.
Yeah, that's what you get for living on the West Coast. You get
Yep.
you get to confound us. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff about the time travel. The whole idea of time travel. I used to write a lot of science fiction, and I have a couple of stories that I've written on that are time travel stories. And what I always like about time travel stories is the paradox part. But most people when they write time travel stories, like if you think of any time travel movie you've ever seen, they don't really care about the mechanism for the most part. They just say, like think of the Terminator movies, right? Have they ever explained how time travel works? No, it just does.
no.
Yeah, but we already knew about flux capacitors, so they didn't.
Yeah.
That's another one. In Back to the Future, it's all just gibberish. Everything he says is gibberish. He just gives a gibberish explanation. So yeah, there are some science fiction movies though where they try to explain a little bit according to the story what the method is. Those stories are never popular because the method of time travel is irrelevant to people who want to see. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure doesn't explain why the phone booth works, right? But
No.
But
Or just
time
Dr. Who with the police box.
right, Time Cop actually does try to explain a little bit about how the time travel works, and nobody likes Time Cop.
Well, I think that's the problem though, because there's to a large extent the more popular ones are more science fantasy, and I think it's just a little bit weird when they try to get too explainy of things and yet the explanation doesn't seem right. It's more off-putting. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? When they try to explain it, but it doesn't really follow. And so when they make up gibberish can work.
Actually, and right. And actually, to a point, the more ridiculous the explanation that they give, the better received it is. Like the movie Christopher Reeves made with I can't remember her name, the English actress. It's really pretty. Jane Seymour. He made a movie with Jane Seymour, and in that movie he has to put himself in a room where there's nothing from his current time, and forget what time he's in, and he'll go back in time to the time that he's imagining. That makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
That's how time travel works in that particular scenario, and so
It's similar to how I don't know if either of you saw the most recent Godzilla movie.
No.
And it tried to give instead of being a radiation-based thing, mm-hmm. They tried to make it evolution-based, and yet their idea of evolution was so completely warped, and I was like, was this written by a born-again creationist? Because that's really how it sounds.
Yeah. Now, was that the one with Matthew Broderick?
I guess so. Whatever, I don't know what the most recent one was. I just know it was terrible.
Okay. Yeah. There's one...
Godzilla was like this equalizer thing that was there to destroy the not quite Mothras, but basically. Oh,
okay. No, that's not the one I saw then. The one I saw, Godzilla was a dinosaur who, for whatever reason, was in New York City in Madison Square Garden laying eggs.
Nope. This one was just last summer.
Okay.
And he came to get the giant insecty creatures that were in the process of mating.
Yeah. Okay.
And laying it. And it was just the fact that they tried to explain it, and yet what they did use of science, even I knew was wrong. Yeah. And like I said, I'm not a scientific person. I never really have been. I was very off-put by math and science at a young age, unfortunately, due to a couple of bad teachers. And it's only since I've been on YouTube, actually, that I've found all these sciencey people that I start subscribing to and get really, to the point where I'm actually learning stuff, which is amazing. I'm learning geology from Wildwood Claire, and I'm learning evolution from Aaron Ra. And
you learn molecular biology from Concordance, I think, don't you?
Yeah, a bit. I have more trouble following it.
Yeah.
But, that's a failing in me.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I have trouble following it too. Sophia Roon used to do a lot of good videos explaining, specifically through ponage. She would, I don't know if you've ever saw Sophia Roon, but she would just sit on her floor. She's a molecular biologist. She would sit on her floor, and she would take a video by some fundy who tried to make a point, and she would explain to him in great detail why he was wrong, and it was really just entertaining to watch, even though you didn't understand half of what she was saying. You just knew he was being owned. And it made it fun. But getting back to the movies, though, a couple of movies that did one movie that did science right, and another movie that did science right but got it wrong. Jurassic Park does the science right. They like the first one. They explain the whole idea of extracting dinosaur DNA from mosquitoes in amber, and then implanting, resequencing it piece by piece, and putting in the missing pieces from frog DNA. That all is really well done. They explain it and it makes sense. And then the dinosaurs start eating people and it's fun. So that was they did it right. But then there's The Day After Tomorrow, where they tried to explain climate change. And that movie was horrible.
Waterworld tried to explain climate change too.
Yeah. And it's just awful.
It didn't understand that there's not that much water.
Yeah, they had to come up with new water for. Yeah. Well, that's in the firmament. That's
Okay.
There's just.
It's from underground as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But don't you know what Kent Hovind said, that there is some kind of ice shield around the planet, or something like that?
Yeah, that's how he describes the firmament. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
There's a reason I avoid these people.
I know. I know. It makes your head hurt sometimes.
They make me sad.
Yeah.
They make me so sad.
Yeah. They bend over backwards to make the Bible fit the science, instead of just accepting the science for what it is. So.
Yep. Anywho, I think we've done it.
Yeah. So Lizard Lass's channel can be accessed by going straight to the search function in YouTube and typing "The Lizard Lass," one word, and she'll pop up, and you can subscribe to her. Nicole is subscribed to her. I am subscribed to her. That's all the reason you go subscribe to her.
The Mudbreaker subscribed to me too.
The Mudbrooker is subscribed to her, and so that's all you need to know. We need to get her numbers back up to where they were, because it's a shame that she lost all of her subscribers that she had built up, and she deserved every one of them, and you'll enjoy her videos very much. And so there's that. Nicole, you had something you wanted to let everybody know about your channel.
Yes, I wanted to tell people who are sorry that I'm not doing much poning videos anymore, that I've got some really good stuff coming, and it will not be poning, it'll all be serious, but it's going to be awful good. This week I'm going to see and meet Jerry Coyne, who will be talking about his latest book. I've got it right here, it's in my hands, Faith versus Fact. And so it's going to be interesting. I'm going to film him the following week. It's going to be on my channel. Then on Thursday, I'm going to Buffalo for the Center for Inquiries Conference, their Reason for Change conference, where I will get to meet Richard Dawkins and what else? Who else? Just because I want to say his name now. Jerry DeWitt, the pastor, who decided that he was going to try to live 1 year as an atheist and see how he would come out of it, and he came out as an atheist. So I'm going to meet him. I'm going to film him doing a presentation. That's going to be exciting. Phil Zuckerman will also be there. When I come back, I will be filming Tony Ortega, who's going to do a presentation on Paulette Cooper, a woman who in 1971 wrote a book against the Church of Scientology. And the Church of Scientology went after her in all sorts of secret documentation. They called her Miss Lovely, and they did everything to break her. And after a few years, she reached the brink of suicide. But that's all in the book, The Unbreakable Miss Lovely. And then, with all that, I'll have tons of material to keep everybody happy for the rest of the month of June and most of July. And then in August, I'm going to another conference. This one will be in Southern Ontario, and where I will meet Lawrence Krauss. And believe it or not, somebody quite interesting, who's not as famous as at least not by name. Her name is Ensaf Haidar. And in case you don't know who that is, she is the wife of Raif Badawi. You remember the atheist in Saudi Arabia who was condemned to 1,000 lashes? Well, that's his wife. I'm going to get to meet her. I'm going to film her while she does her presentation. She's going to be on my channel. So, people who are listening to this on the just the audio podcast, I suggest that you take a look at my channel, Nicolas D, because there's going to be an awful lot of good stuff coming up soon.
Very good. And while we're doing the shameless plugging part of the show, as most of you know, I'm a writer, and my mystery novel series features an atheist detective. I will have a book coming out while we're on hiatus at the end of July, and that book is called Shared. No, it's called. No, it's not called Shared Display. That was the last one. It's called Five Secrets, and it's a mystery novel. When that book comes out, all of my other books are going to be on sale. So you'll be able to read all of the, in ebook form, they'll be on sale. So you'll be able to read all of the books in the series for less than $10. And if you wanted to purchase them all, and then and actually the book, when it comes out, will be on sale for a while too. And then everything will go back up. So make sure you get those at the end of July when they first come out. They're also all available in paperback, but they aren't going to be on sale in paperback.
Yay! I like paper.
I will be coming out with a paperback version of the first novel in the series that's going to be cheaper than the one that's out now. The one that's out now is overpriced, but I'll be coming because of the publishing house that I used. But I'm going to move it to another place and it'll come out cheaper. But anyway, so it'll be available too. Then at the end of the year, I'll be putting out a collection of noir stories. It's called 8 Tales of Noir. So if you like noir stories, watch out for that. And I also have another podcast that is me reading short fiction stories that other authors have written. A few of them are stories that I've written, but mostly it's stories that other authors have written. And I read those in character. So there's a lot of acting involved in those. And that podcast is actually growing pretty quickly. I've got, it gets about 3,000 downloads a week right now. I'd like to get it up to 5. So if you like short fiction, please check that out too. It's called the Thrills and Mystery Podcast. It can be found on iTunes. It can be found on Stitcher. It can be found on YouTube. So if you want to subscribe to it on YouTube, you can do it that way.
I didn't know you had it on YouTube.
What's that?
I didn't know you had it on YouTube.
Yeah, I have it on YouTube at a channel called Thrills and Mystery Podcast Channel or something like that. But I'll put the links. I'll put the links to that in the description too. The podcast itself is on a hiatus right now. Season 2 of that will be starting up. You can also listen to the entirety of Season 1 on Audiobooks. If you go to Audiobooks, you can download the whole thing and listen to it at your leisure. So there's a lot of good stories on there. All of the stories have an element of suspense or danger, but they're not in any particular genre. So there's stories that are fantasy, there's stories that are horror, there's stories that are mystery, and there's detective fiction. So there's all kind of different stories in there. I have stories coming up next time that are in. I'm trying to get a story. I don't have any science fiction. I'm trying to get some science fiction in there, but next season there may be some science fiction coming in. So anyway, it's a variety of genres. So if you just like listening to stories, each episode is about 25 to 45 minutes long. It's something you can listen to on your commute. So check that out. Okay, I'm done.
So am I. Right. And I'm going to hit the sack in about 5 minutes.
Okay, so subscribe to the Lizard Lasters channel.
Yes.
And yes, and
yes,
so
please.
Yes, please. That's all for today. Please make sure you subscribe to the Atheism TV channel. There you can watch the Infidel News for the Damned, where our talented team of writers and anchors present these and other stories not normally covered in the media. In the coming week, the Infidel will rerun today's stories and many more fascinating ones. You'll find Atheism TV at youtube.com/atheismtv. The Infidel Podcast of the Damned is a Nicole SD production. Nicole and I would like to recognize and say thank you to Truth Surge, who did the voiceover used in our intro and gave us permission to use music from his song Lied To as our opening theme. We'd also like to thank Lizard Lass for participating in today's podcast. Nicole's channel, you're welcome. Nicole's channel is Nicole SD and can be found at youtube.com/NICOLSD. I'm Gamut Man on YouTube, at Gamut Man on Twitter, and my blog and information on my books, including my nonfiction title, Believe It, You Know an Atheist, as well as my mystery novels featuring the atheist detective Lupa Schwartz, can be accessed at tinyurl.com/lupalanding. While there, you can sign up to receive my newsletter. Signing up also entitles you to choose one free ebook title from my collection of 99-cent novellas. Thank you for watching, and we won't see you next week because Nicole will be off recording something, but we'll see you the week after that. Bye.
Bye, everybody.